Olukunanu. And my parents are from North Carolina. And one is from the East Coast, and the other one is from I say the Piedmont region of North Carolina, but born and raised in North Carolina. Um, and what else?
Both of your parents are born and raised in North Carolina?
Yes.
Okay. And then how do you identify African American, Black American, just
Well, just through studying and communing with the ancestors, I've learned that my family, we were here before Columbus and them. And
period?
so and I at first I never really cared for African American. I
Mhm.
didn't care
Mhm.
for that because I felt
Yeah.
as though people from who actually was born in Africa and come to America, they are African American.
Correct.
That's not me or my lineage. And then I would just say Black American, but I'm not a color. Um, I
Mm.
never identified as that. When you look at other ethnic groups, they always represented the area that they came from.
Right.
And so, and then once I started learning, I just say I'm an indigenous American,
Okay.
you
Give
know,
thanks and
'cause,
praise.
you
Give
know,
thanks.
I my family, my family has been here for generations, so
Mhm.
I just say
Mhm.
indigenous American. So this where I am is where I am. I
Yeah.
have claims to this land. So
Give thanks and praise
thank
for
you.
that historical, awareness, number one. But also, I'm so curious. I usually start with upbringing and how you were raised and etc. I'm gonna kind of reverse it
Okay.
because you are obviously an EFI practitioner, EFI Nawo Day. And I wanted to ask you about, being in EFI tradition while simultaneously not identifying as African American, while also having the ability to choose hoodoo. Talk to me a little bit about your your relationship with EFI while also not, identifying as African American, and then your relationship or not relationship with hoodoo.
Oh,
Let's start with that.
okay. So we'll have to go back a little bit further. So
Okay.
I was raised actually when I was born, my parents were Muslim. And
Oh, wow.
so they were Muslim whenever I was born. Once they separated, um my mom, went back to Christianity. So I
Okay.
was I was practically raised Christianity, AME, African Methodist Episcopal. And
Mhm.
so just just going through that day to day. Once I got grown and moved out on my own, I moved to Atlanta. I was in Atlanta for like 18 years.
Oh,
And so
wow.
I was always on a spiritual journey because I always felt like there was more. I knew I wasn't being fed spiritually in Christianity. So I thought by changing different denominations, that will help, but no.
Tell
Eventually,
me, slow down and tell me some of the denominations that you tried. What were you trying?
well, I visited like a Baptist church. I eventually went to World Changers, Creflo Dollar Church, because I really didn't like the denomination thing, but because I was just really looking for a church that was looking for a church that just really delved into the Bible and taught the Bible how it was written. And I wasn't getting that out of Christianity. Um, I started studying a little bit of Islam, but that that no, it wasn't for me. It wasn't for me.
Can I ask you, did you, you said that your parents were Muslim. Did you grow up having to recite or anything like that?
No, they wound up separate when I was 3 years old. So I was young. So I just had one memory just going to the mosque and as a little girl. So
Yeah.
no, I don't remember it from them early years.
Okay.
Um,
Okay.
but
So you
I just,
tried. Mhm.
because I just knew that parents were, I would say they were spiritually open, um, or spiritually aware to a certain degree. Um, and so, so I just study Islam, practice Islam for it wasn't even a whole year. It just didn't sit right with my spirit. I just felt so confined. Um, and the community where I was, it just wasn't as supportive. Especially someone new going into a different spiritual practice. You need a lot of support, and I just didn't receive that support, and so it just didn't gel with me. So I kind of just chilled out for a while, and then eventually I came across the Hebrew Israelites. And so and I'm grateful for this one particular camp because I realized you have different Israelite camps. Some of them, they only believe in the Old Testament. Some of them, they do Old Testament and New Testament. And so because that's what I was familiar with, the organization that I came across, they were actually they called themselves the New Covenant Congregation of Israel. So I was like, okay, cool. And so when my first day visiting this camp, when I walked through the door, it's like I felt something lift off of me. And I was like, okay, this is something right here. I've never felt this before. I'm supposed to be here. And so they were very welcoming. They had different classes, and they were very active. And then even when it came to the teachings, of the Bible, I mean, we literally read. It just wasn't the pastor up there, giving a speech. He was literally like, they have someone who's a reader. And so the pastor would, I can't even remember what they was called. They weren't called pastors, but anyway. So the pastor would tell, this is what we're reading. The person will actually read the scriptures, and then the pastor would go back over it and break it down and provide understanding. And then we will go throughout the Bible, you know that's supporting, just reading the different scriptures that correlated. And so going from Old Testament to New Testament, it really opened my eyes. I was like, wow, so this is what this means. I said, okay. And so I understand you cannot have you cannot have the New Testament without the Old Testament. You have to have a true understanding of that. And in Christianity, they just say, well, Christ done away with that. And then in actuality, when you read the word for yourself, Christ did not he did not throw that out. The only thing that Christ took away was the sacrificing of animals. That's what it was. But we still have to, basically, you still have to have good character. You still have to not lie, not cheat, not steal. So all of that's in the Old Testament. And so I really, it was definitely a spiritual growth for me, and I really enjoyed it. But once I got to a certain point, there was a glass ceiling. I stopped growing spiritually. And because my thing is, Christ said that you too can do these things. You too are God's. And so I'm like, how? What is it that I need to be doing to obtain that level? If it is written that we can do XYZ, I want to know how to do XYZ. And so one of the things that I noticed, we was always doing things traditional. Like we didn't, of course, we didn't sacrifice the animals, but you had the holy days. We observed the holy days, the new moons, the Sabbaths, and it was always the same thing every day, every week, in and out. And there really wasn't a spiritual component. It became mechanical. And so I was like, I'm not growing. And of course, around this time, I say around 25th, 2014, um, I was introduced to Reiki. um I started learning about chakras and crystals, and of course all of that is a big no-no in the Hebrew Israelite camp. That is a big no-no. I was like, oh my gosh, you about to die. But and so my transition was challenging because with Hebrew Israelite it had such a hold, it had a hold on me. and and my thing is I always want to please the most high. I
Yeah,
want to always do what is right according to the creator. That has always been my goal.
absolutely.
And
Can I
so,
ask, in
yes,
2014, how long had you already been with the Hebrew Israelite by the time 2014 came along?
um, close to 10 years because
Okay.
I wound up getting married a a year after well, it wasn't even I wasn't even there a year. I think I just say 6 months in, I wound up getting married.
Okay.
So I
Okay.
was married, we had children. And when I tell you that was my life, that was my life. It was
Had to be if you
always,
raising your babies and all, and you got a husband in it, you got the
yeah.
kids in it.
So it was always, work, home, church. That was my life. Because I'm the type of person, I throw myself into it. If this is what I'm gonna do, if this is what I'm how I'm gonna live my life, um, I'm going to be in it. I'm in it 100%. I'm ride or die. That's just who I am. Um,
Can I also ask
mhm.
what I know when people get into things, like get into a routine with religion, a lot of times they just end up staying there, because it's like it's normalized at a certain point. What happened that woke you up to, like, I'm not growing? Like, what sparked you thinking to yourself, like, it's the same old? What sparked that?
Okay, that's a great question. So it was one thing is what I noticed, like with the Hebrew Israelites, they always said, if you're not baptized under Yahweh, Yahshua, you going to the lake of fire. Um, and so even when it came to like the people that I was working with, of course at work, they were mostly Christians, but they were good people. They were good hearted people. They had great character. They were giving. They were loving. They definitely represented the fruits of the spirit, which is written in the Bible. And so I'm looking at these people at the camp and their character and how they acting and comparing it to the people, at work, just regular Christian folks. I'm like, I don't think God gonna send them to the lake of fire because y'all over here, y'all ain't right. Y'all hearts ain't right. Your character ain't right.
Right.
I- and so that was one thing right
It was
there.
it
And
was giving hypocrisy.
exactly,
Okay.
exactly. And then like I said, I just wasn't being fed spiritually. And then I that was a big thing right there. And so and then even with my marriage, it was so interesting. My marriage was kind of parallel with it as well, because what I realized after the fact, a lot of hurt men tended to do Hebrew Israelite because they felt like they had some type of authority. Out in the world, men, they're beat up, they look down upon. They're not, and I'm just saying in general,
Well,
it's not.
well, speaking about black men,
Yes,
because
black men.
yes,
Yes, yes,
yeah,
yes,
for
black
the
men.
for the person who is listening right now, whether it be on the live stream or on the podcast, Israelite is a what would you call it? Would you call it a religion? Would you call it a practice? What would you call it?
I mean, it's a cultural, it's a practice.
Okay. So Hebrew Israelites is a practice that mostly, I think primarily black people
Yes.
partake in, right? So black men, you were saying that um they're as powerless people, in the real world, this was an opportunity to have some of that power restored, or to feel as though they could have an opportunity to just, exert control, or have some say so over what's taking place, some dominion.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
so I didn't so one of the so in the Bible, how it was, especially in the Old Testament, with the culture, because I felt like how the camp was operating was antiquated. They wasn't evolving, they wasn't growing, and so how they treated women, I didn't care for. So it's like women you're seen and not heard, but yet it was the women that was putting the money in the congregation. It was the women that was upholding everything. And so it was a riff with that. And I didn't care for that. Um and so those are just little things that I started to notice that I was just like, nah. And then of course I'm looking at, my relationship with my husband. It wasn't, when I really sat back and looked, it wasn't what I wanted. I really wasn't happy. And actually if I would have stayed in that marriage, honey, I would have been dead. That's I was under so much stress, because I was the one working. I had a full-time job and a part-time job, trying to take care of the household, had children. And you know it should have he was a stay-at-home dad, and I was like, this is not what the Bible says it's supposed to be. And, I even went to the elders of the congregation. I ain't trying to put my business out there, but it was a hot mess. I didn't like it. I was like, this is not the life that I came here to live. No, I know. I reject this. And so
and and
doing
and I just want to say that that's a very big deal in and of itself, because a lot of people, you just get lost in the sauce, you get caught in the shuffle. So the fact that your spirit was out here screaming, absolutely not. Very,
right,
very big deal.
right.
Continue.
And so let's see. I
So
can say
you had come out, you're leaving, it's 10 years in. Now you're moving on.
right.
Went to, is it Reiki after Hebrew
Well,
Israelite?
yeah, because what happened,
Mhm.
I knew that I couldn't take Reiki classes still being in the same household, with the ex-husband, because just having crystals, he called that witchcraft. And I was like, that's not witchcraft. Um, and that was a whole nother battle within itself. But I was like, kick rocks, deuces, see you when I see you, deuces. So that was in 2014. So December 2014, Baba Kaya had his yearly event. And so I went to that event, and I was just like, wow, this is what I've been missing. It was phenomenal.
Who is
Um
Baba Kaya, sis?
okay, so Baba Kaya, yeah, thank you for the questions, because my mind is you helping me stay focused. So Baba Kaya, when I first met him, he was just Kaya. So he was my Reiki master teacher. So he is a master energy, Reiki master, and teacher. A master energy practitioner. I mean he's more than that. I mean, Baba Baba is awesome. He's everything spiritually. Um, so when I met him, I was just like, wow. And so he started a class in January 2015. So I said, you know what? I'm taking that class. And so the first class that I took was Kundalini Reiki. And if for people who are into energy, they know that Kundalini Reiki is a very heavy energy system. And but you know what? It was what I needed, because my energy was just so dense, and I didn't know my energy was dense. And so I needed a strong system like that to really really get through and break things down. And so it helped me, it helped me in the fact of my perspective, in regards to spirituality, um working, with the different, well, I just call it religion for the lack of, different religious systems and whatnot. It just provided a lot of clarity in regards to that. It helped me break down my emotions, what I was going through. It helped me, through my how I was raised, child seen and not heard, from the South, so it just helped me on so many different levels. And so I was hooked. And I said, well, whatever Bible teaching, I'm there. It got to the point, I had a little joke. I said, I have me a 50, what do they call it? 504 Kaya. That's what it was. Was it, they have that where people save money for their retirement. Was it 401k or something like that? But I had one. I was just putting money aside for them classes, and that's what I did. And just by taking the different energy systems and just being able to, really go deep within myself and give me that spiritual food. And that's what was missing. Reiki energy is spiritual food. And I said, you know what? Anybody that comes out of the womb needs Reiki. And so eventually,
That's
I
every single person. You're saying every single human being on this planet needs Reiki.
yeah, and animals, everybody,
Okay.
everybody.
Now, you are talking about, you're speaking a lot of really beautiful concepts, because if I can narrate what I've heard so far,
Yes, yes.
it sounds like you were in a journey to of you were searching for a while,
Hmm.
and early in the first part of the journey, you talked about going to different churches, trying on different um legs of Christianity, not feeling that you belong there, going into the Islamic faith, not feeling like that was where you belong, finding, a solid Hebrew Israelite community, and getting married and then having children in it, but then realizing that it still wasn't meeting all of your needs, the needs that you had, not from a not from a dogma and a textual place, but from a spiritual aspect. Was your spirit being fed? Were you elevating? Were you blossoming and blooming in that? And you didn't feel like you were. So then you went on further, and then it sounds like you're establishing now, almost, if I can be bold and say for the first time, a real relationship with your spirit, with your actual soul, with the Reiki practice.
Hmm.
How long were you in the Reiki space before you evolved again and then, went into where you are now?
Let's see. I'll say maybe about 6 years.
Okay.
And so even during that time, there was this other spiritual community, um, that I was a part of. And in this
Mhm.
spiritual community, they spoke a lot about like the different gods, different deities, and
Mhm.
other pantheons. And so I was able to learn, about the different pantheons. And so of course, the Orisha, they came up as well. Now, one of
Wow.
the things that I didn't care for.
And the Orisha is African traditional religion. I just have to say that because
Yeah.
everybody not where you are, sis.
And so one of the things that I didn't like was, they will always say, hey, of course you can learn about the different gods and deities, find who resonates with you, and then you can start just praying to them. And you can start asking for stuff. And that never sat well with me, because my thing, because I knew that the Orisha was a part of a traditional African system, and they have protocols. Every spiritual system has protocols. You just can't just hop in and be like, "Hey, I need da 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 da." Da. No, you're not gonna disrespect these guys and these deities and these Orisha. No,
How did you know that though? Like what if you nothing that you said in the past would have given you any information about African traditional religions. How did you know? How did you hear that and then know like mm, that's not
you know what?
accurate?
When I think back on it, it was some. It was. I guess my Ori was letting me. I didn't know at the time, but Ori was letting me know. No, you don't do that
Yeah.
because
And
if
Ori
I
is highest consciousness again for my babies out there.
okay, and so because my thing, I also looked at it as like if you was to meet someone.
Mhm.
And so when you meet someone, you have to take the time to get to know them. So you talk to them on the phone, you might send text messages, you go hang out, you take your time to get to know someone. And so you need to have that same type of practice getting to know the different, gods, deities, and the Orisha. And so just through my studies and what I was researching, what I came across, there was it always said you have to go through SU. SU is at the crossroads. You have to go through SU before you can get to the other Orisha. And
And
I was like,
Eshu is
"Oh, SU is the well, he's over the crossroads. So
okay.
he's
He's the
well,
keeper of the crossroads,
yeah, he's the king.
right?
He like the police. You know,
Right.
he the one, he the one he gonna let you know yay or nay. He the one he gonna write it
Okay.
down and he gonna whatever you do or don't do, he the one gonna take it. So
Mhm.
he gonna make that decision. He gonna be like yay or nay. And
Exactly. And I'm literally responding to messages that I'm seeing in the chat. And
oh,
someone
okay.
is actually saying in the chat, "Thank you for the definitions,
Oh,
ma'am."
okay.
Uh-huh.
Okay. You're welcome.
Yes.
Um, and so and I knew, and then of course I knew that Ifa was a very old tradition.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
so I didn't want to get caught up into something like the Hebrew Israelites and how they treated women. I didn't want to
Mhm.
be a part of something where women were being oppressed. Women had to be quiet. Women didn't have a say so because women are very important. God created man and woman. So there there is an importance. There is some there we are put here for a reason and we have to work together. Where we gel together whenever we're balanced. We work very well together. God created us for a reason. And so I did not want to be in a position where it was unbalanced. That's just to give a quick summary. And so back to the Orisha part. So I started just reading about the Orisha because when you start to read and study about the Orisha, that's a way of getting to know them. And then also, and I always said, well, they would have to come to me because I don't want to be bold and be like, "Oh, I want you. Oh, I want you." No, this has to be mutual. So I started reading and learning the different things that they like. So the first ones, well, I say the first Orisha that came to me was Yemiya. And I was like, oh, so that's how y'all show up. Okay. And so then started, doing different prayers and started doing meditations. But I was very slow with it because, again, I knew that it was a traditional system. And at the time, I didn't know any EFA communities, I didn't know anybody. And so I was just taking my time, just doing it on my own. So my Ori what has always been there teaching me along the way. And of course, during this time, I'm still taking classes with Baba. I even had a healing business with some other people, and we would, we did Reiki sessions, we taught different spiritual classes, and so that was a part of my journey. And then Baba started teaching the seven African powers, and I was like, okay, Baba, I
Right.
I was on it.
Now, okay, before you started working with Orisha, did you know that Baba Kaya was already in Ifa initiated priest?
I
You
never
had
knew.
no idea.
No,
Oh,
I did not
wow.
know until I started taking one until I took his class.
Okay.
And
All
so
right.
and even Baba said that in his journey he put Ephi down, like he was able to set it aside, and then and around the same time it came back up for him. And so so he's been full-fledged ever since. So I took the seven African powers class. So this particular class, it was a general synopsis of each orisha. And so, and how Baba taught the class, he was able to correlate the seven African powers to your chakras. And so, since I was familiar with the chakras, and then start to learn about their orisha, that was a good segue for me. And even in the class, it had invocations, so I was accustomed to invocations and the energies, and so he incorporated some prayers, and so I started working with him. And then he started teaching the actual Orisha class. So when he started teaching the classes, I took all of them, because I saw the benefit of all because the benefit of all of the Orisha in my life. And so the reasoning, why I started doing it this way, number one, for healing, to continue to grow and evolve spiritually, always for spiritual protection, because people out here ruthless, y'all. They crazy. I done been through some stuff, y'all. Whew. And I'm over here minding my business. I'm trying to live. I got children to raise. I'm trying to run a household, and you got crazy people coming after me, attacking. I'm like, leave me alone, leave me alone. And
Wait,
so, oh, for real.
you didn't warm us up for that.
Oh, my
What
bad. I tell you, my
what
mind, girl, my mind everywhere.
what
I guess I got a lot to
was
say.
that a big thing for you before you got into E5? Was it like I need protection, I need protection, E5 help me, or was it like
Well, protection, even with the spiritual community that I was with before I started taking the classes, protection was always my number one thing that I wanted to learn. It was always protection and healing. That was my thing. I know some people, they go for power, they go for money, and they go for all of those things. That's if that's what you do, that's what you do. But for me, it was all about protection, spiritual protection. Now, I didn't know the depthness of why I needed it until things started to happen. And so I guess that was just Ori guiding me. Learn about protection, work on your health. So those were always the top two things um in my on my spiritual journey. And it still is. It still is my protection, health, and then of course, because I am a spiritual healer. I'm into herbs. I know you mentioned hoodoo. I haven't forgot about hoodoo, because hoodoo is a part of it. However, right now EFI is the focal
Ifa
point.
is loud. I'm not gonna knock it, because I'm here partying with you. So I'm not gonna knock it. Ifa is loud, but after you introduced yourself and made it clear who you are, you might as well started ringing linging the bell on every single ancestor you've had that was born in the US. Like it's who do it's not me. Okay, it's you. So I just, when you talk about being indigenous to America as a black woman, we are literally looking at the creators, the founders, the originators, the original priestesses and priests of hoodoo. So I just
Mhm.
had to ask the question. Okay, just
Oh,
to,
yes, ma'am.
I'm just here to interview.
Okay. So we're gonna put a little pause right there. So let me just back up a couple of years. I was still in Atlanta. Um, because when I tell you I was married, and I even had my own little business because I got laid off from my job at one point. And so I started making candles, and I was at this place selling my candles. And so this lady, she worked there, and she said, you look like you need to be in the backyard doing hoodoo. I was like, voodoo? She said, no, hoodoo. And so I had never heard of hoodoo. And I was like, interesting. But that was a seed that was planted because, honey, because like I said, I was still married, I was Hebrew Israelite, and I wasn't open to anything else. It was Team Yahweh. I mean, I'm still Team Yahweh, but not like how I used to be. I didn't learn about Yahweh, but that's a whole nother story. Um, and so moving forward, once I broke away from Hebrew Israelite, started learning about different pantheons and things of that
Mm-hmm.
nature, I did come across hoodoo.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, oh, okay. Because I even bought some books.
Mm-hmm.
I had came across this guy out of South Carolina who was a hoodoo practitioner. He was
Okay.
like third, fourth generation.
Right.
I purchased his book, and it was a very good book, and it just didn't it resonated with me, but not real strong. But and I knew that when I think back on it, like with my grandmother, I think she was a hoodoo practitioner, but she never said this is what
Why
this is.
why do you think your grandmother was a hoodoo practitioner?
It was because she always dealt with herbs.
Okay.
Because like I grew up with herbs now. We got mullein growing in the yard, we got
Right.
chickweed. It was always something herbal, a herbal tea, or if you sick,
Mm-hmm.
take this concoction. It was,
Right.
and so I just thought that was just something that my grandmother did. And of
Mm-hmm.
course, back in the day, they didn't black folks didn't go to the doctor that all the time. They always went to the medicine man or the
Right.
medicine, well, the medicine man or the medicine woman. And so
Mm-hmm.
I just thought that what that was.
Mm-hmm.
Granny, she was a Christian. She went to church every week. She was very active in church. And I remember at my grandmother's funeral, this lady spoke, and she said that when she had first moved to town, she couldn't find a job, but she had spoke to my grandmother, and my grandmother told her to read this certain scripture um for so many days. And the woman did what my grandmother said, and she wound up getting a job.
Wow.
And
Okay.
and so my grandmother has always helped people in that way. But
Mm.
as like I said, as a child, I didn't know. I didn't
Right.
see. I just thought that that's just who my grandmother was. And
Let me ask you this. Now that you are here on
mhm.
this side, definitely way deep in your journey, your life journey. When you look back at your upbringing, at your childhood, at interactions you may have had with your family, visiting your family, etc., are there any other instances that you see of hoodoo or any other spiritual or indigenous practices in your family lineage?
um no,
Okay.
no.
Just
Uh,
grandmother, mother side. That's it.
right. And
Okay.
actually that is who is present with me, is my grandmother on my mother's side.
Your hoodoo granny.
Yeah, it's a whole slew of 'em. I had one of them who, whenever I was going through something, like she woke up, whatever what I was going through was real bad. She woke up and she's like, "Honey,
Mm.
I take care of it for you, baby."
Oh,
And
okay.
and so I had to go back through the family book to find out who she was, because I think she's like my
Mm.
grandmother, like four, five. I think she's 5 times back,
Okay.
and she's only she wasn't mentioned that much, and so I
Mm,
don't have a lot of information on her.
on her.
But
But
she
you know
woke
her
up.
name.
Yeah, I know her
Mm-hmm.
name.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Elsie Mae Sneed.
All right. Elsie
Grand
Mason.
grandma, yeah, Grandma Elsie Mae Sneed.
All
And
right.
so hoodoo is there,
Mm-hmm.
and I feel as though it's going to rise because like I said, I still do herbs and concoctions and
Mm-hmm.
whatnot.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And but even in Ifa,
Mm-hmm.
um, you have Osayin. And
Mm-hmm.
so I
Mm-hmm.
work with Osayin, and he does the airway and then all the concoctions and things of that
Mm-hmm.
nature. And so to me, I know they're different, but there's that similarity, and it kind of merges together for me. And so just being able to um just a piece here, a piece there, and just putting it together as a puzzle. Um So that's the hoodoo aspect. So I'm
Mm-hmm.
not a full-fledged hoodoo practitioner,
Mm-hmm.
but
You
just
do
from the
have
thing,
access.
but I have access.
Yeah.
Some of the things that I have read, they are with me, and they're
Mm-hmm.
also with me through Ifa. So that's why I say
Okay.
it merges.
Right.
So
Right.
so it's there. I
Mm-hmm.
just don't use that terminology. Uh,
Right.
but it's there. It's there.
It's a really it's a really beautiful journey that you've outlined for us, and thank you for sharing it, as you have, because you literally took us through all these different chapters and all these different stages. I'm just part of me is always curious about, like, what gives you the stamp of approval, right? And let me talk about that stamp. Oftentimes when people are coming out of Christianity, there's already so much stacked on, beliefs about demonic practices, and this is coming from savage Africa. There's so much negative connotation about indigenous practices, right? I just my last interview was with a sister in New York, Annette, and even in talking to Annette, you know, has this heavy relationship with her ancestors, and she's also Black American, raised, and Jamaican. And I said to her, what's the big deal with your ancestors? And she said, the ancestors is something that they didn't want us to have a relationship with. They didn't want us to engage with. And I said, well, who is they? And she said, the system, white people, patriarchy, colonialism, etc. And then I simply asked her, well, do white people venerate their ancestors? Like, what you talking about black ancestors? Is it just black ancestors? Do they, have white ancestors? And she said, yeah, you can see them at the Lincoln Monument. You can see it on the dollar bill. You can see it on the coins. Every time it's Columbus Day, we sell that's somebody's ancestor.
Mhm.
So she then started to outline these things with ancestors, and all of that makes perfect sense. But there is a process of unlearning that
Mhm.
many people have to go through just to be able to be okay,
Mhm.
with venerating ancestors. What were the things that you believed before, or that you were taught before, that came up that you had to release to be able to move on to each chapter that you moved on to? What Because you talked about energy work. What did you have to release to be able to do that? E5, what did you have to release about Africa, or being African, in order to be able to embrace that and embrace Orisha? What did you have to release about um these structures of patriarchy, to be able to leave Hebrew Israelites? Like, what did it take to, what you have to surrender, in order to be able to go on and level up?
Um, that's yeah, that's a deep question. So let's see. So the one thing about the ancestors. So I the like I said, the spiritual community that I was a part of before Ifa, they taught about altars. And when I learned about altars, I realized I had an altar and didn't know it was an altar. So on my, because I had a table, I had pictures, of my family that had already transitioned. I always kept an incense up there. If I got flowers, I put flowers up there, or, you know, only thing missing, I just wasn't doing like offerings. I wasn't doing food. I didn't know about food offerings. So all I had to do was add food to it, and and then actually just acknowledge them. I was like, man, this is an altar. Didn't even know I had an altar. I was like, okay, y'all being with me. I ain't even know. And
The
so
whole time.
yeah, and that's just so when it came to that, it's just that it was already there. I
Mm-hmm.
just didn't know that's what it was called. I
Now
just thought,
break down what you're speaking about, because again, everybody don't know what an
okay.
altar is. What are we talking about? What is an altar?
So I had an ancestor altar. So for me, an altar is just a physical representation to be able to communicate with your ancestors on the other side. So
Mm-hmm.
I would have, I have a candle. So whenever I light the candle, that's like the doorbell. They know like, hey, we got something coming. And so
Right.
I put an incense, for the fragrance. They like fragrance.
Mm-hmm.
And I put the food out. So they like the energy of the food. So I put food out for them to receive that energy. And then I also will burn ancestor money.
Mm-hmm.
And that was interesting within itself because ancestor money was really Chinese money.
Right.
And but what you can do with that, you can even put intentions behind that. And
Mm.
so I would write on it for who it was, and I would give it a monetary amount. Um I would always say the prayer like honorable core. That's
Mm-hmm.
and then the class I took from Baba, Baba turns everything into energy. I just love it.
Mm-hmm.
I think that is
Mm-hmm.
so amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Everything could be turned into energy. And so that's what I would do. I put the energy on it. I would send them energy, just to be able to help them on the other side because
Mm-hmm.
there are things here that we have that they
Mm-hmm.
need. And in turn,
Mm-hmm.
they can turn around and help us. And
Okay.
so that's what the altar represented for me. And
Mm-hmm.
that's what I did. I did that for years, offering money. I wind up having some Asian ancestors roll up on me in my dreams. Oh,
Wow.
because that's
Wow.
because that's another part of me. I resonate with ancient Chinese culture. Um,
Mm.
it's just certain aspects of that culture that I really like. So I want to go to China one day. But
Which
that's just
explains why Baba is your Baba. Mhm.
exactly.
Because
But I never, but by doing the energy work was really the foundation that really opened up a lot of things for me, and
Mhm.
it helped me to grow and evolve. Because
Mhm.
and I know one of the questions was like, what was it that I released?
Mhm.
One thing was when I tell you the Hebrew Israelites had a hold on me, they had a
Mm.
hold on me. Um,
Mhm.
but when I started to learn who Yahweh really was,
Mhm. Mhm.
and I know I'm just gonna put this is just for what I've learned, what
Mhm.
Spirit has shown me, but even though in the Bible, anyway, Yahweh is not the creator that created everything. Is Yahweh a
Oh.
God? Yes, he is. But is he
Oh.
the God that created everything, the universe? No, he is not.
Oh, wow.
And that information I had to do this research on the history of the earth
Okay.
and listening to other practitioners they study the aliens. Let me tell you something. This stuff out here deep. It's deep, 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 deep.
I might need to enroll in your, when is your next class? Because obviously, like a practitioner, like obviously a teacher, a mentor, something.
Yeah, I'm getting there. I'm getting
Yeah,
there.
okay, all right. Drop the links in the bio.
And so when I learned that, I was just like, whoa. I was like, a
Yeah.
lot of people gonna be butt hurt.
Right,
Um,
right. Well, not but her, but it's so many of us out here who have sought answers, really like look high, look low, to find out like what's going on. And it's such a great segue maybe, into other conversations because sis, I don't know if you've been looking at what's going on outside, but everything is popping up. Everything is coming. Everything that was buried is now emerging. The amount of information that we are being presented with, the amount of exposure that's taking place from governmental systems, political systems, countries, racial lines, ethnic lines, how they break down black communities, the CIA, and this and that. All this stuff is being brought to the light. We are in the era of the whistleblower. Okay.
mhm,
This is the age of Aquarius. Aquarius stands for I know. All right.
mhm,
So now we're in this age of knowing. And I think that for those of us who are truth seekers, for those of us who want to understand, it is a very natural and organic process to exchange what we've learned so far. This is a natural and organic process. And that's one of the biggest reasons that I did this series because I've been in academia for 3 good years in this women's spirituality master's program. And baby, when I tell you there's so much information that's sitting in academic libraries and in people's papers and stuff like that that never makes it to a public facing discourse. It never enters into a public arena. And that's my job. My
mhm,
job is to demystify and decolonize academia and what's taking place in these coveted rooms that you have to pay $10,000+ to get into and bring
mhm,
it all onto Front Street.
mhm.
So again, thank you for showing up. I did want to make sure you felt good answering the question, that you answered the question to your liking and your ability. We have about 4 more minutes, so let me know if there's any other component for that question, and then anything else that you just want to share, anything that you feel like needs to be said that hasn't been said so far.
Um, in regards to the elevation, being okay with letting go of people in your life, including family. Um, I've even had family members to die along the way. I don't you it's an energy thing.
Mm.
Because you have people, they're more helpful for you on the other
Other
side.
side, yeah.
And number two, with what I'm able to do is helping them evolve as well.
Mm-hmm.
And and I think, well, and with Ifa, we venerate our ancestors through Ifa, and it's on a larger scale.
Right, much larger.
And so it's to the point, like, I don't have they gave me permission. They said I don't have my ancestor altar anymore.
Mm-hmm.
However, I am the altar.
Yeah,
I am the
yeah,
living, walking um altar.
yeah.
And so they live through me. And so
Mm-hmm.
by me doing my prayers, by me acknowledging them. And so I do offerings outside, to Elay, that which is Mother Earth. And so
Mm-hmm.
whenever you do offerings to Mother Earth, it's also giving offerings to your ancestors as well. And
Yeah.
so with EFI, what I've been learning, like I said, for me, it combines everything.
Mm-hmm.
And that's one of the things that I always look for. How can I get the maximum impact, but very efficient, because I got a lot
Mm-hmm.
going on in my life, and I'm like boom, 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 boom. And so I need something that's going to be efficient and concise.
Right.
And so with what I do through EFI is that. And so by learning about EFI through Baba Kaya, um, yes, he's traditional and he
Mm-hmm.
does teach us traditional ways, but
Mm-hmm.
because he's the energy, a master energy practitioner, he's able, actually the Risha come to him and they giving him different ashes. And
Absolutely.
so he's able to incorporate that with tradition. And I was
Mhm.
like, that's right down my alley.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. I love
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
And so because the Orisha, they want to grow and evolve as well. They don't want to be
Mm.
stuck in the pot.
Mm.
They don't want to just be there. They want to
Mhm.
be here.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
so by learning Ifa that way and doing the prayers, doing the prayers and doing the offerings, it helps elevate them. So
Okay.
everybody is being elevated. Everybody is growing. So the Orisha are being elevated. The ancestors are being elevated. My Ori is being elevated. I'm being
Ashe.
elevated. And
Ashe.
even my 143 aspects of me in different
Yeah.
dimensions and realities and spaces is being elevated. So
Ashe.
I love it.
Ashe. Ashe. Thank you so much, sis. This
Oh,
has
thank
been,
you.
I know you probably looking like, I don't know what's gonna happen on this interview. I'm surrendering because I'm open and I know my story needs to be told, but I don't know what's gonna happen here. Baby, this was a lot.
Oh wow.
This was
Look,
a
there's
lot. And if you go back, I think you're the 11th interview so far. And if you go back and look, there is nobody else whose story matches really
oh
anybody
wow.
else. Yeah, it's a very, and we do have some other EFI practitioners who I've interviewed, but nobody's story is like this. So thank you so much for being willing to get on here and share this, share the light, share the journey, just be honest. And of course, this is the time for us to just be in conversation about these type stuff. We've been doing a lot of stuff behind closed doors. You can't tell nobody, you can't talk to family. Folks gonna look at you crazy, people gonna judge you. Baby, we are out here though. We are
Mhm.
really out here, and there's so many who are still stumbling and finding their way to the light. So I already know that this is going to be one of the most listened to
Yeah, well,
interviews so far.
I
Yeah.
say, well, look, there's more.
Ashe.
And but I
Yeah.
want to say to you was thank you for this opportunity. Because whenever, Baba posted it in the group and I read it, I was like, for real? That's what's up. That's what's up. Let me send her a message because
I'm
I want to
so
do this.
glad you did. I really am because I and this is the biggest thing with me is I know I'm one of Baba's godchildren, everything. I know I'm a part of everything, but oftentimes I feel like I'm not because I'm in Tanzania. Everybody's in America. So living
You
in
the
East
sister in Tennessee. You
I am. It's
the one? Yay!
me. It's me. So I always feel like I'm by myself and nobody's here with me. I'm just over here, by myself. So I'm so glad Bob is coming to visit me because I'm like,
Yes.
I've been feeling alone over here. And now having you as my god sister to come and do this interview, this is just it's more than I can ask for. So thank you
And
so
so you
much.
got and you welcome. And so you got the picture. You
I
saw the picture.
did. I downloaded it and saved it to my Google Photos and everything. Thank y'all for thinking about me and sending it. Don't get me emotional on my interview, but thank y'all for thinking about me.
Oh, I didn't know this was
It's
you.
me. It's me,
Hey,
sis. Hey.
man.
So if we have to do another session, it will have to be on Yahweh. Cause
Okay.
I already know somebody's gonna message me and be like, can she come as a guest or something like that on one of the workshops? I already know. So before y'all ask me, I'm already putting it out there because I don't want any problems with none of these folks harassing me. So just to let you know, there might have to be a kind of part two, but part one for Yahweh. So we will talk,
Okay.
sis, for sure. Thank you so
Yeah.
much.
You're so
Thank
welcome
you.
and thank
Thank you.
you.
Thank you.
Yes.
All is
This makes it
one.
even better.
I
Yeah.
mean, so we'll talk soon. Thank you so much, sis.
You are so welcome. And I'm
All
grateful to
right.
be a part of this. All is